Unlock the power of AI in marketing with our new series, AI Agent. Dive into the world of SaaS tools, discover how marketing pros deploy bots, and explore the best use cases for AI in your marketing strategy. Only on Marketing in the Age of AI podcast with Emanuel Rose.
Welcome to this episode of Marketing in the Age of AI. It's great to have you here. We're going to have a great conversation today about how to deploy authentic voices in AI tools for content marketing, content development, and how to get as much of that automated as we can as of early 2025. And my guest today is Zack Zeller. Welcome, Zack.
Hey, thanks for having me.
You bet. I'm glad. I appreciate your time, and appreciate you sharing some of your secrets with us about how you're producing great marketing and also doing it in the shortest amount of time possible.
That's the game plan.
Awesome. Well, that's cool. So, talk a little bit about how you picture content development to publishing, and kind of where those steps are that you're able to get some support either from low code, no code, or high code AI bots.
So, I have a big background working as a classic direct response copywriter, working and learning from brands like Agora Financial, Bridges Cooley, and Jason Capital, a lot of information publishers. And so the way that I learned marketing is with this chain of belief that you have a person starting at point A and you need to get them all the way to point Z over here, going bit by bit by bit by bit. And so that informs a lot of how I use AI. So when I'm thinking of content, that first step is always going to be research. And the more better information you can feed into an AI tool, the better output you're going to get, which sounds obvious, but a lot of people try to shortcut it. And they think that if I pull a few posts off of LinkedIn from Laura Acosta or someone who's crushing it and have a few sentences about what I do and a few sentences about who I help, that's good enough. But with my clients, I like to create these monstrous 30, 40 page manifolds, like these manuals on who we're talking to with their pain points, the benefits, the different experiences, beliefs, identities. It's really a lot of thorough stuff to feed the AI with.
Your ideal client profile is really built out, is what you're saying.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Because a lot of where AI copy gets stuck is in the level of specificity.
Right.
Because if you ask for a piece of copy or a social media post, it can spit something out that follows basic frameworks of, oh, here's the problem, here's the agitation, here's the solution,
yep.
Or here's how Justin Welsh or Ben Settle would frame something. But the real magic is when people connect with you in a way that you understand their experience and you're speaking directly to them. And you need specificity to do that, not just game-changing, transformational, that vague language that AI is great at spitting out.
Yeah, and it starts to either be hype or, like you're saying, it just misses the target because there's no hook for the person reading it, right? Well, that's cool. So that's a big part of it, is a very clear and specific ICP, and so you're building some kind of a custom GPT for each client with that as chapter one, essentially.
Yes, yeah. So it's a balance of letting the AI have enough creativity and freedom, but also being very specific with what you're putting into it, so it knows who it's talking to, who you are, and how you like your content written, or what content resonates the best.
Yeah, gotcha. And so you must have spent quite a bit of time developing the prompt framework to be able to get this work product out for you.
Yeah, so that's one of the maybe flaws I would say with my system, is because I like to use a lot of back and forth prompts, because it gives me more hands-on with the AI instead of just putting in a magic prompt and having it spit out everything I need.
Right.
Sometimes, depending on what I want, I'll say, okay, this hook sucks. Start with more of a question.
Yep.
Or I'll come across something on social media that I find really engaging, like a statistic, and I'll say, oh, this statistic is really good. Like, let's change the hook to incorporate that.
Yeah. No, and I think so. In that respect, I would say philosophically, you're using the LLM as a thought partner and a co-creator versus just getting an output from it.
Well, there's almost different levels to it. So with my personal emails, because that's my voice, and I've been writing a daily email for a long time, since I was in college in 2012, 2011.
Nice.
I had a
That's
daily
awesome.
email list.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I know how I like to say things. I know what works for me and my audience and who I'm talking to. So those, I can just prompt it and it'll spit out what I want with minimal editing.
Right.
But
You
for
have
some other people,
so much reserve there for it to reference it to, right?
yes, yeah. For other people, though, it might not exactly capture their voice and the little idiosyncrasies and the way they tell stories, or what their audience resonates with. Like, I'll have a male client in the business development space, and I'll have a female in pretty much the same market. And for the man, what works are these case studies with specific numbers.
Yep.
And for the woman, what works are more not necessarily sensational headlines, but more curiosity based.
Okay.
So we'll say for the guy, here's how my client made $30,000 from following my system, that type of thing. But for the woman, it would be, are you making these mistakes with your offer? Or like 5 things I changed in my business last week that, got me this big benefit.
Love it.
So
Yeah, the psychological triggers that hit people differently. That's awesome. So then what's the next step? What's the next thing that you're looking at after ICP's developed?
Yeah. So the next step is going to be swipe. So what happens is you have all this information, and if left unchecked, ChatGPT, or I use actually a lot Claude for emails and copy specifically, it'll be left to its own devices. And there's what makes copywriting so simple but so difficult is that there's no one way to do it. And so if you just let these large language models go, they're trying to save energy. And so they'll go oftentimes with the most simplistic output.
Right.
That's why my emails are so successful, like for my personal brand, and what I strive to build for my clients is having a database of proven emails that get high opens, get high clicks. So that way we can train the AI tool to really create these emails that are proven to convert for us.
Right.
And so it doesn't come off as derivative. It doesn't come off as AI smoothing and generalizing things over. It tells stories just like you're used to from the business owner. It talks about the right pain points in the right ways, and it still converts really strongly.
Love it. Yeah. So you got ICP to swipe files, and then what's next after that?
So in addition to the swipe, I like to create a voice analysis. So
Okay.
when I'm looking for voice analysis, I'm looking for not just write this as if it's coming from someone's big brother, or uh, act as if you're an expert in so-and-so field.
Yeah.
I like to really break it down into, yes, what's the tone, but also what sort of language patterns do you use? What's the almost overall philosophy behind what we're saying here? Like, are we just looking to be results focused, give tactical value, or are we looking to have more abstract thought leadership to reframe and mentor people? Because both of those reflect differently on the brand, but having those overarching guidelines that are more abstract in nature paired with the swipe will do a really good job of almost building this box around what the AI is outputting.
Yeah.
And then you have the avatar where we know exactly who we're talking to. So it builds this great bridge of, here's where the AI is starting of who we're talking to. Here's where we're looking to go in terms of examples of the finished product. And then as we make that bridge, here's how we get there with different rhetorical patterns, different influence triggers, different tones of voice, different goals of how we're communicating.
Love it. Very sophisticated. So that's pretty cool that where you have that tone check, which I think a lot of people know they want to maintain their brand voice, but then you want to have a way to synthesize the brand voice to the ICP and then make sure that you're on track. That's what I'm hearing you say.
Yeah, and so I use these AI tools to support with a lot of the content and the marketing, because my big strategy is keystone content, which is, if you have a killer book, you don't need to rely on tons of social media posts to convert people into a customer, because you can have that great book and feed it traffic with shorter form content.
Right.
So, but the reason I bring that up is because I was reading a client's book over the weekend, and she had this common mistake that a lot of these experts make, where she's a psychologist, she knows her stuff, but the way she describes her intellectual property isn't very exciting.
Right.
And so it's just not sticky. She's shooting 10 arrows where you could shoot one. Like, if this is unfair, but if you were to compare her to someone like Jordan Peterson, she would have 2 or 3 sentences, which Jordan Peterson essentially expresses as treat yourself how people treat their pets.
Right.
Where it's like you have that care, and it's sticky, it's memorable. Yep. Exactly. And so I share this because a lot of people are very intelligent, but in terms of the copywriting, thought leadership, persuasion side, they're a little bit in their own way of expressing those ideas in a sticky enough way.
Yeah.
And so that's what these bots help with a lot too, where it's a lot of times my prompts are terrible because I'm just brain dumping. Hey, I had this call with a client. Here's what he thought. Here's what I think about it. And then the AI will spit out a much more simplified version of it, which is kind of what you need.
Yeah, which is why we have marketing help.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Even those of us in marketing get marketing help, because it's tough to break out sometimes the things that we're SMEs on, subject matter experts, and put it into situations where it's simple enough for everybody to understand.
Yeah, and that's what really separates you from AI. So this is kind of a ridiculous example, but I dislocated my shoulder about a month ago. And so I go into ChatGPT and I say, hey, this is my injury. This is how, it feels like I can lift my arm overhead to this amount. Like, what can I do for this?
Yeah.
And it'll spit out a plan. But the problem is its lack of experience and its lack of emphasis. So I'll look at that plan and it'll have me doing like 4 times as many things as the physical therapist will have me doing.
Right.
And it's based off of theory, but the problem is if you're a subject matter expert, yes, the information is out there, but your insight and experience is not. Because any physical therapist who's been practicing for, more than a year or two could look at that output from ChatGPT and say, it's not wrong, but don't do that because it's not going to get you the result.
Right.
And so
Yeah.
that happens not just if you're trying to heal your own shoulder, but with marketing, with sales, with finance, with all this other stuff that people are using ChatGPT for.
Nice. Yeah, I agree that it's kind of like the emotional intelligence, the intuition of dealing with humans. Like those are still things that we, for the time being, have still in our domain, and why we're still needed.
Exactly.
Well, that's cool. So I got you. I got your process up to kind of this brand voice test, and so then where do you go after that? What's next in your process?
Yeah. So this is, I'm sure you'd appreciate this as a marketer because there's always 2 sides to the marketing equation, where there's the part where you're very much in your head and having imaginary friends where you're thinking about the avatar, you're having these imaginary conversations, and you're trying to get the strategy and copy right before you put it out.
Yeah.
The problem is that a lot of people get stuck there. And so if you're spending too much time on getting the prompts right, massaging these AI tools to get the right output, you're not actually getting results from the audience.
Right.
And a lot of the time, you'd be surprised at what resonates and what doesn't, because using AI tools is not something that you achieve once. It's not, okay, I have the prompts, I have everything going, I have my good outputs, and I'm done. Because yes, the AI tools evolve, but your audience evolves too.
Right.
And so what I like to do is I like to do this in every month or every 2 weeks, depending on how much content and how much data we're getting. But I'll have a sheet of all the copy that we put for that time period, and I'll have a sheet where I track the engagement metrics.
Right.
So typically for email, it's open rates, click-through rates, and sales, like conversions. And depending on what sort of business they have, it may make sense to track like sales calls or earning per click if it's to a webinar or a landing page, that kind of thing.
Yep.
But we're tracking sales.
Yeah.
And I'll feed that into ChatGPT to look for the patterns. Because what happens is you'll see, okay, cool, you sent 30 emails, and as you're writing and scheduling it out, each piece of copy looks good, but you're going to notice that there's going to be 1 out of every 5 pieces of copy that gets a huge amount of engagement.
Right.
Or just as valuable, something that totally bombs that you thought would have done really well.
Yeah.
And I like to feed that back into ChatGPT and analyze it to say, okay, like how can we get more of these stories that resonate? So for this one client, again, it's all of these case studies where it's either they got a specific dollar amount or they overcame some kind of fear in their business.
Okay.
Where it's they are looking to grow their business and they made the sale, or they were looking to grow their business and they reached out to someone they admired and got a joint venture or got a big client or something like that, because that
Right.
supports his product and resonates with his audience. So it's like, okay, now that we have that information, not just how do we tell more stories and create more content like that people really like, but what do we need to do to actually get more of those stories from the business?
Yeah.
And that's where the marketing ties in with the business fulfillment, where it's now he has an email sequence where after 30 days, he'll reach out to people for testimonials from his group.
Nice.
Or I know a lot of people, he doesn't do this in particular, but I know a lot of people with coaching and high ticket mentoring, they'll start the call off with, let's go around and talk about wins of the week.
Yep.
Because you get this like very specific languaging from the people that you work with that you could then feed into content. And it's AI helps that all go a lot faster, but AI isn't going to create really good content for you in a vacuum. You still need that creativity, and you still need that good business to actually promote.
Well, I like what you're saying, where you're taking your content and your results, your key performance indicators, putting that back in, getting some analysis and tracking what works, what doesn't work. So that's a critical activity. And then I love this what you just said about how the coaches are getting wins of the week and using that language from their current clients in order to then to broadcast that back into prospective clients. So that's super powerful. Well, let's see. So just you said you like to use ChatGPT for more general things, and then Claude specifically for writing. And then are there other tools that you've found that you've been that you've vetted and like using that are helping you?
Yeah, so I really like this tool called Poe, where it's, hopefully they don't change the price after I say this, but I have like $200 a year, and I get more tokens than I'll ever use,
Yeah.
and I could use it across pretty much all the AI tools that they have out. So I can play around with the, for example, the Flux, which is the top like image producer,
Yeah.
using Claude, and all the different types. I think they just released, I'm going to get this wrong with the numbers, but Claude 3.7, I think they just got that on Poe, and ChatGPT 4.5, I think. So I really like that. Otherwise, with AI tools, a lot of them are a fancy interface in front of Gemini or Claude or ChatGPT.
Yeah. Right.
So I'll kind of make my own things with that.
I love it. Yeah. Now there is a lot of middleware, right? Like you're describing, where it's not, it's been focused in a certain way to help, but with a little bit of time, most of us could create a prompt sequence that would negate having to pay that monthly fee for services we probably are already paying for. So
yeah,
well,
especially.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, especially with a simple tool like Zapier, where you can almost create this chain of AI and make not a full AI agent in terms of it, like it won't click stuff for you, but it'll take the outputs and process them step by step, which is pretty much all you would need to completely automate this content machine.
Yeah, it's amazing that Zap is really good. Zapier. There's another one called Pabbly, and then we're going to be interviewing later this month a company that actually has an AI API integrator, so that it can be a little bit more sophisticated than what Zap is. So yeah, that's cool. We're really happy with what we've gotten with Zap too, in terms of being able to connect stuff up. So
yeah.
Any other tools like Zap that you're using for like the next dimension of agentification?
There's, just Zapier and Make.
Yeah.
There
you go.
Again, there's a lot of different types of these tools, and I don't have the time or need to test all of them.
Yep.
But those work for the most part, 80% or more of what I need.
That's cool. Yeah, I agree. That's for most of us in the marketing department between Zapier and Make, we'd be able to get everything done that you need to.
Yeah.
Well, Zach, it's been great talking to you. I appreciate your time and breaking out that system. Great conversation. If people wanted to get in touch with you and talk about content marketing, email marketing, how would they do that?
Yeah, the easiest way is on LinkedIn. So I'm Zack Zeller with a K on LinkedIn. And I also have my book, Email Cashflow, at fixyourlist.com. So you can see the actual strategy to then go and feed it into your favorite large language model.
I love it. And then how do we get on your daily email newsletter list?
Yeah, you could do that at fixyourlist.com. I also have a link
cool.
on my LinkedIn bio as well.
Love it. Well, I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much. And reach out to you again in a few months and we'll see what else is going on.
Awesome. Yeah, it's changing so fast.
Every day. All right. Well, you have a great day, Zach. Thank you very much.
You too.
Okay. Cheers. Well, there you have it. Professional copywriter explaining how to be really clear about your ICP, about how to create your brand voice, check your brand voice, and then feed back into the LLM what type of results you're getting and how to continue to innovate. So I love those fundamentals. And if you haven't started using Zapier and Make, I highly encourage you to get in there and start trying it. So thanks for checking in today, and I look forward to seeing you again real soon.
Thanks for listening to Marketing in the Age of AI. Be sure to subscribe wherever you heard this podcast so you never miss a future episode. Your copy of Authentic Marketing in the Age of AI is available at Amazon.com or EmanuelRose.com. You can also connect with Emanuel on LinkedIn. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.